Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for this week. These are the horoscopes for the last week of July, ending July 30th, 2016. We got some fun stuff coming up for you guys, so we're going to go ahead and get right to it. And we're going to start, as we always do, with Aries. Now the moon is going to kick off this week in your sign, lining up into a grand fire trine with Saturn and the Sun in the beginning of the week. And this is really going to set the pace energy-wise for the rest of the week, because grand fire trines are all about putting energy, mass amounts of energy into what it is that you want to do. And it's really focused on, in many cases, your career, and in some cases, the past. Past triumphs, past career triumphs, and as well as past mistakes in terms of getting to those goals. Now, when those past mistakes come up, whether it be thought process or whether we're seeing things that are mimicking those past mistakes, you want to, of course, look at those particular circumstances or situations and see what didn't work. And look at it logically. What didn't work? Okay, I did this. Maybe I did it prematurely. It didn't work, so I'm not going to do that again. What you don't want to do is spend time beating yourself up because those things didn't work out in the past. It doesn't mean that it's not going to work this time. The truth is that success is often defined by many, many, many failures because you've tried several different ways and they didn't work out. So you've got to keep trying until you find the way that does. So this week, enjoy that beautiful boost of energy when it comes to that grand fire trine at the beginning of the week. Make sure that you use that energy wisely. Put that energy into everything that it's everything that you got, and you got to put it into everything that you got. That's your goals for this week, because the truth is, if you're not reaching for absolute awesomeness, you're not reaching far enough. So you guys have a great week with that. Taurus, understanding your relationship with money is really important this week. In fact, that is the main goal and the main focus of this week. And with the moon coming into your sign later on in the week, you may feel the heavy weight of emotions around money. So it's really important to understand the relationship that you have with money. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to say a relationship with money, that doesn't make any sense. Of course, it doesn't make any sense, especially if you've never heard it before. But everybody has a relationship with money. And if your relationship with money is you feel like you never have it, that's kind of a toxic relationship with money. And it's also a very toxic relationship if you squander your money. Instead of saving it and putting it towards things that maybe you need, you'll hold on to it. Both holding on to it and overspending it are very toxic relationships with money. This week, you want to take the time to really focus on, what kind of relationship do I really have with money? Am I a cheapskate where I don't want to spend anything? Am I an overspender where I spend it as soon as it gets in my pocket? Am I constantly worrying about where it's coming from? These types of things are considered toxic in this money relationship with yourself. And you want to, of course, identify where you do these things in this relationship. And you also want to identify how you can change this. For example, your relationship with money doesn't need to be the main focus of your life. And if money seems to be the main focus of your life, or you're always thinking about it, chances are you've got kind of a toxic relationship with money. You want to make your relationship with money comfortable. You want to make it so comfortable that the money just wants to flow into the door, just to flow into your bank account. And the more you make this relationship comfortable and non-toxic, the more money is going to flow to you with ease. Think about that for just a minute. So this week, spend some time reevaluating your relationship with money. Make sure that your relationship is in a good place with money, not necessarily a toxic place with money. The more you do this, the more it becomes easier for you to allow that money to flow into your life the proper way, the easy way, the way we always love money to flow to us. So you guys have a great week with that. Gemini, the moon comes into your sign at the end of the week, moving into a beautiful grand sextile with Uranus, Mercury, and Venus this week, towards the end of this week. Now, at the beginning of the week, if you feel a little bit overwhelmed in terms of building your goals, whether they be personal goals or business goals, you may feel a little overwhelmed because it feels like everything is coming at you at once. So you got to deal with a lot of things at one time, and that can be very overwhelming for your brain, even though your brain is a brilliant brain, as most Geminis are, and they can handle a lot. Even the best Gemini is going to get overwhelmed by all the little details and all the little things that need to be addressed right now. As the week comes to an end and the moon comes into your sign, though you might be thinking that this is going to make everything even crazier, it actually kind of sort of helps everything fall into place and making things a lot easier for you, which is a really good thing. So keep your mind open to the miracles of the universe, because this is how this works. You may feel overwhelmed by everything you got to do right now, but you could just wake up tomorrow and find that everything just sort of falls into place and you didn't really need to over worry about it at all. You want to avoid worrying about it because, of course, that's going to get in the way, and just focus on one thing at a time as much as you can, allowing the universe to come in and bring that beautiful energy in for you also. So this week, be open, don't get too frustrated, don't get too overwhelmed, just take everything as it comes and allow the moon to come in at the end of the week to help everything just kind of sort of fall into place. And those things that don't fall into place, they may not fit in that particular place. You might have to reevaluate a couple of things. So you guys have a great week with that. Cancer, the moon comes into your sign right at the end of the week, still in a grand sextile with Uranus, Mercury, and Venus, and we're talking about goals, specifically your career goals. And we're talking amazing energy towards these particular goals. You know, this is not just energy where things fall into place. This is energy that boosts you forward when it comes to these goals. Clear communication towards what you want in your career goals is going to get you everywhere this week. You really want to speak clearly and precisely what it is that you want. And you don't necessarily have to speak to the people that are of course in charge of that career. You can speak these words to the universe. Just make sure when you ask for what you want that you're very specific about it, because if you're not, you may get what you want, but it's not quite what you want. I've kind of been there before in asking the universe. You want to be specific about what you want when you ask. But also, we're talking about having a very clear space to be able to say, okay, this is exactly what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do about it. The moon actually comes into your sign at the end of the week and takes those sort of question marks that are floating above your head away from you and allows you to really have a clear focus on exactly what it is that you want so that you can plan accordingly. So this week is a great week for you to really pay attention to your goals, both personal and business goals, and really, of course, focus your energy on those particular goals. Really saying to yourself, these are my goals. I'm going to achieve these goals this week, or I'm at least going to achieve something around these goals so that something that gets me forward in my ultimate results. So you guys have a great week with that. Leo, happy birthday to all the Leos born this week. We kick off this week with a grand fire trine as the sun in your sign lines up with the moon and Saturn to create this grand fire trine at the beginning of the week. And it's a really powerful energy towards your career goals, specifically any kind of career advancement for you this week. Now, a lot of times we look at success and advancement, and we look at it and we think, God, that's going to be a lot of work. And the truth is, success is a lot of work. I mean, you can't just sit on your behind and expect things to happen. You've got to go out and make these things happen. So it is a lot of work. However, it's not the work really that's a lot of work. A lot of times it's our own mindset. It's our own beliefs behind the work that we have to do. For example, you can have a job that you want. The opening comes up. You go and you apply for that job, and then you sit, what happens afterwards? You sit and you wait and you worry about it. Oh my God, are they going to call me? Am I going to be good at this job? What if I flunk? What if they don't like me? What if they don't like my hair? All of these different things. And we nitpick it to death. Now that actually is a lot more work than the work that you actually have to do in order to get that job. You want to avoid all of that, the worry, the kind of sort of, self-beating, beating yourself up kind of tactics, all of those worry tactics, because that turns out to be a heck of a lot more work than the work it actually takes to get to where you want to go. So do yourself a favor this week, spend some time just focusing on the work that needs to be done. And anytime that worry stuff comes into your mind, you shut the door on it and you say, you know what, you're not welcome here today. I don't even want to go there today. I've got too much work to do. As you're just focusing on the work that you need to get done in order to succeed, you're going to find that you're going to get farther than you ever have before, and it will feel like you did nothing at all to do it. So you guys have a great week with that. Virgo, Jupiter's opposition with Neptune ends this week, which is a beautiful thing. And that, of course, makes Jupiter's trine with Pluto even more powerful than it was before. And this powerful force is really, really pointed towards your relationships, specifically how you see those relationships. When it comes to reciprocation of what you put out, and let's face it, Virgos, we know you put out more than 100% into your relationships. It really is necessary at times to really sit back and evaluate how you seem to get that back when it comes, when it comes to those particular relationships. Not just everybody in the world, but your really important relationships. Now you really want to sit down and evaluate that, because not everybody reciprocates in the same way. Some are very, very subtle. It's kind of like back when we were kids, and me being a female and males, boys didn't just come out and say, hey, I like you. They would poke you. They would pull your hair. They would do all these little weird things to show that they liked you. But, of course, unless you knew that, and of course as young girls we probably didn't know that. I know I didn't know that. I took that as they didn't like me because they're constantly poking me and pulling my hair and doing what I considered mean things. Now, I'm not talking about people doing that to you specifically, although I'm sure that there are the cases like that. But you really have to pay attention to how each individual person shows their love and appreciation for you. The truth is, not everybody is going to show it back to you in the way that you put it out. And you really want to pay attention to this, because the more you start to see the subtle ways of reciprocation, the more it makes you feel loved when you think about it. If you're avoiding, of course, seeing or looking at how people show their affection for you in these little subtle ways, you may not catch it. And then, of course, it makes you feel like you're putting out all this energy and you're putting out all this love, and you're not getting any of it back. So this week, it's time to pay attention and to do a little bit of evaluation, because by the end of the week, as the part of fortune comes into your sign, you're really going to be able to see and feel just how powerful that love coming back at you is. And that is definitely an amazing feeling that you don't want to miss. So you guys have a great week with that. Libra, becoming better than you were yesterday is the focus for this week. But of course, doing that means taking a sometimes very difficult inventory of yourself. It is about, of course, looking at yourself on all levels, not just what you want to see, the surface stuff, but really taking a look at the juicy center of that onion, the meat of your insecurities and those difficult internal workings that we all have. It's amazing as human beings, we always want to ignore those things because it's painful, or we take that pain and we justify it by saying it made us this way and all of these different things, and it really doesn't have to be that way. And this week it's time to kind of sort of change that up a little bit. You have a responsibility to yourself, and of course, if you want to be the best that you can be, you've got to take a look at these specific things in order to change them. If you don't identify them, if you don't focus on them, how are you going to change, or how are you even going to know what needs to be changed? This week, when these particular instances come up for you and you feel like you're tired of being in this situation, this is the universe coming to you and saying, now it's time to identify inside of you why you're drawing this stuff to you. By doing that, you can understand yourself on a deeper level, understand where that insecurity root comes from, I should say, and be open and honest enough to say, okay, I understand I do this, now I'm going to stop doing it. I'm going to do something different. Or, I'm not going to stand for this anymore. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. It puts the power back in your hands. And let's face it, Libras, the power needs to be in your hands, not somebody else's or not something else's when it comes down to it. So we're taking ourselves out of the, if only the world would stop beating me up, and putting ourselves in the, I know the world is going to continue to beat me up because that's life. Now, I want to know how I can handle it a little bit better so that I can be more successful at the game of life, because that is really what it's all about. So this week, be brave. Be brave enough to look at the deepest internal workings of yourself. Scary stuff? Absolutely. But the more you are brave enough to focus on those things, the more you can change and the bigger and stronger you can be. And that is what it all comes down to. So you guys have a great week with that. Scorpio, as Mars moves into a difficult squared position with Venus and Mercury this week, it's going to kind of make you feel like the more energy you put into your career, the more you seem to be slipping away from any kind of forward movement or success in terms of the goals of that career. And that can be really, really frustrating. And of course, with the dark moon in your sign also, the dark moon's always calling for change. She's always bringing up these particular situations and circumstances that are making you feel this way so that you can change something within you. Now, these specific circumstances, of course, are going to make you kind of sort of feel like no matter what you do, no matter how much energy you put into your own success, it's like life and circumstances seem to come in. These things are completely beyond your control, but here they are again, and they're coming to smack you down and smack you on your butt. And basically the circumstances are saying, you don't deserve to have that success. So you wind up sitting there on your butt on the floor, really feeling sorry for yourself. Now, of course, everybody's going to go through this. But the really important thing is that you get back up off the floor, dust yourself off, and keep on going. The truth is that the life is life. This is what's going to happen. There's always going to be circumstances beyond your control that are going to come in and attempt to, or possibly, knock you down on your butt. But the truth is, the more we worry about those circumstances coming, and the more we use those circumstances as an excuse not to move forward, the more we're putting the power into the hands of an unknown force that isn't going to do us any good. This week, it's really, really important for you to take a look at and evaluate the way that you react to the situation, not the situation itself. We're not going to change the situation itself. There's no possible way of changing it. Let's change how we react to the situation instead. So even though you've got some difficulties, how you react to those difficulties is really what's going to make or break you this week. Paying attention to the circumstance and why it's slowing you down, or maybe not even why it's slowing you down. Just understanding that it's slowing you down this week doesn't mean that it's going to slow you down next week. Next week may be something completely different. You may be slowed down this week, but next week you're off and running. Think about it. So this week is all about paying attention to your reactions. Are you worrying about it? Are you using it as an excuse? Are you allowing it to take you down? If you're doing any of these things, this week it's time to change your reaction to these situations. And by changing your reaction, you change who holds the power. And of course, if you own the reaction, you own the power. So think about that and have a great week with that. Sagittarius, while Saturn's squared position with Neptune still continues to be a bit of a problem, especially around communication in some of your relationships, The moon moving into grand fire trine position as she lines up with the sun and Saturn at the beginning of the week is actually a very powerful energy that projects you forward when it comes to your career goals. Now, and of course, as the moon moves out of that aspect, Saturn and the sun are still going to be in trine position. So that feeling of that particular aspect is really going to stay with you more than any of the other fire signs the most throughout the week. Now, it's really important, of course, this is all about where you focus your energy. In terms of the difficult aspect between Saturn and Neptune, of course, emotionally, you're going to feel like you need to fix this situation or deal with this situation more so than your career goals. Because it's a relationship. This is somebody that is going to be with you forever. And any career or job may not be with you forever. And it's a great way of trying to justify it, Sagittarians, but it's not necessarily going to work. What you're actually doing is you're saying, I'm looking for a difficulty so that I can focus on that difficulty instead of putting the energy into my career. You know what the truth is? You're selling yourself short, and you do it every single time. I'm telling you right now, you do it every single time. Because every time something good comes up or something that you want to do comes up, there's always something rotten to take the focus away from it. And this is the pattern that needs to be broken this week. So this week, you got a lot of energy towards personal success. It's right there, it's wide open, it's ready for you to grab on to personal success. Are you really going to let somebody else's misperception get in the way of your personal success? That's what you have to think about this week. And the more you focus on your own personal success, the more you allow things to just work themselves out in terms of that particular relationship. So you guys have a great week with that. Capricorn, Pluto's aspects with Jupiter and Neptune this week really help you understand your relationships on a much deeper level, especially with Neptune. And Neptune being in retrograde, being part of these aspects, Neptune's retrograde really allows your intuition to flow a lot stronger than it normally does, because that's what Neptune in retrograde has a tendency to do. And when it comes to your relationships, using that intuition to understand the feeling behind somebody's words rather than just listening to the surface of what is being said really helps you out, not just in understanding the relationship, but also in understanding yourself. Now, if you listen to just the words, you're going to have an emotional reaction to that. So if somebody is upset and they're having a bad day and they say something rotten to you, even though you said, hey, how's it going? And they said something rotten to you, just listening to the words, you're going to have an emotional reaction to that. You're going to take that and you're going to go, well, okay, I'm sorry I even bothered asking you. Now, bring the intuition into that and really allow the intuition to help you feel or understand what's going on underneath those words. Now, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to, it's going to be a lot easier for you to understand where that person is coming from. And everybody makes mistakes. Everybody takes a bad day and takes it out on somebody else. I mean, that's just a given. And you can't say that you don't do it either, because everybody does it. But at the same time, using the intuition to understand that something is off about this person gives you the opportunity to say, okay, would you like to talk? Maybe if we talked about what's bothering you, it'll make things easier. That gives you an opportunity to help that person rather than just get mad and allow yourself to emotionally react, which is going to make it more difficult for them. It's also helpful for you because rather than going through that emotional reaction, you can you're able to understand how they feel. It makes you understand your feelings a lot better too, and you're of course really putting some positive energy into that relationship to help that person so that you can move on and have some fun afterwards. It doesn't have to be that complicated, really, when you think about it. So this week, your relationships are on center stage, and really understanding those relationships on a very deep level is very important. Not just because, you want to understand the relationship, but because you want to understand yourself and your particular place in that relationship. So you guys have a great week with that. Aquarius, re-examining the foundation of your plans and ideas is really important for you this week, especially as Aquarians have a tendency to come up with a million ideas at once. And of course, once you have that idea, you want to do something with it, right? The more ideas you start to have that kind of sort of are offshoots from the foundation of your plans, the more you start to feel like an octopus, where you need to grow 8 legs in order to do 8 different things at once. And then you might actually have to grow 8 more because you got 8 more ideas on top of that. Now, what happens when you do that is you start to confuse yourself because you're taking and veering yourself away from the master plan, the original idea of where you wanted to go. Well, this week, take the opportunity to put away all of the octopus legs for a minute and refocus on the foundation of your plans. What is your main goal? You want to make sure that these ideas stick with your main goal. And even though they may be brilliant ideas, that doesn't necessarily mean that that you have to implement every single one. You want to make sure that these ideas resonate with the foundation or your mission or what it is that you set out to do in the first place. Now, this is going to do one of 2 things. One, it gets you back on track so you're not kind of sort of in outer space everywhere. And it's also going to give you a break from the octopus arms for a while. It gives you a break from doing 10,000 things at once, which is always good. And when you can focus on your foundation and remember why you started this in the first place, you can also chop some of those octopus legs off too, because they may be great ideas, they just are not great ideas for this particular purpose. But you never know. They could be a great idea for something or someone else. So this week, it's time to really focus on that foundation, really come back to what it is that you started to do, so that you can be as successful as possible in making sure that you achieve those goals. So you guys have a great week with that. And finally, Pisces. With Neptune square with Saturn having you feeling like you're dealing with the same relationship issues you've always dealt with over and over and over again, whether it be with the same person or just the same relationship issues that you keep having with different people. The good news is that Neptune's aspects with Pluto are calling for change, and they're really helping you with that particular change. And Pluto is sitting very much in a space that's pointing to changing how your thought process works around this particular situation. Now, when it comes to that thought process, it always is the same. You may not realize this, but if you really, really take a look at it, you'll realize that it's always the same. Your thought process goes to the same pattern over and over again. And chances are, when you're dealing with these relationship difficulties, you're thinking about them in the same way, in a very negative way. And you're also overthinking them. They take over your brain. It's like you get irritated, and that irritation takes over your brain. You can't think about anything else. You can do things, but in the back of your mind somewhere, you're still irritated and going over how irritated you are about this relationship issue. This is part of the problem, of course, and this is where it makes you part of the problem in your relationship. What 2 things are happening here. One, of course, you're not realizing that you're putting this negative energy into the relationship. 2, it's allowing you to say to yourself, this relationship is never going to change because the thought process is not going to change. And of course, 3, it's a gross waste of energy because you're worried about the fact that this relationship isn't going to change. This week, when you have these relationship issues, you really want to try and focus your mind's energy on positivity within the relationship. What in the relationship does resonate? What does work? And really focus on that, so that when you get to the difficult parts, you can find a way to transform them in your mind from something that's difficult into something that works out. And this helps you in the relationship itself, because now you're putting a different energy into it. So you guys have a great week with that. Thank you so much for watching the horoscopes this week. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Don't forget to go and head over to heavymetalpsychic.com and check out our calendar page. You want to check out the calendar page because there's lots and lots and lots of events that the Heavy Metal Psychic will be at. And of course, you don't want to miss your opportunity to come by, hang out, and get a reading from me at one of these awesome events. Specifically, we've got Metal in the Mountains coming up just next week, as a matter of fact. So you want to check that out. Again, I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great week. Hey, I'll see you guys next week.